Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Hope everyone had a great 4th of July. All right, motion to approve the county board minutes.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion is second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any additions or deletions?
Not at this time.
I'll make a motion
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Got a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Social service report. Brad.
Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Brad.
And state your name again for the records, please.
Good morning, Brad Vold, Director of Public Health and Social Services. With me, I have a guest and I'll let her introduce herself, and she has a report that's included in your packet.
Perfect.
Good morning. I'm Lori Schultz, the Executive Director of TRICAP. We are
Morning.
the community
Morning, Lori.
action. Good morning. The community action agency that provides public transportation services as well as energy assistance services in Morrison County.
So you are up first to talk about transportation.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I like to come every year and just give a report on how public transportation services have been over the last year in Morrison County. And so I thought since I'm here, I would talk about energy assistance as well. But I'll start with our public bus services. We had another good year with public bus here in Morrison County. We increased our ridership numbers, which is always the goal. This past year, we continue to have 4 accessible buses that are in the city of Little Falls, Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we have a Saturday service here in Little Falls from 8 to 5. We did increase our routes to St. Cloud. We used to do one Monday a month where we would go from Little Falls into St. Cloud. We're now doing that 2 times a month, and that ridership continues to be strong. And so we see that there is a need from folks that are in the Little Falls area that want to get into St. Cloud. Mostly it is for medical appointments, some specialty clinics, and then as well as some shopping at stores that they may not be able to shop at in the Little Falls area.
Mr. Chair, Lori, can I interrupt you right there? As
Absolutely.
long as that's the topic you're on. When we take the bus to St. Cloud, and I'm asking the question, do we leave Little Falls at 9 o'clock? Once we get to St. Cloud, we have 17 drop-off points and 17 different pickup times? How does that?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yes. So what happens is we leave Little Falls at a certain time. I'm not exactly sure what that time is.
Yep, doesn't matter.
We stop in the cities along the way into St. Cloud and pick up other passengers. Yep. They have destination drop-offs. And so our bus takes them, drops them off at the different locations. Then what happens is if there's a lull time, our bus will just go to our Wait Park office and wait. And then we do a transport within St. Cloud. So let's say we have a Little Falls resident who needs to get dropped off at Centricare at 10:30. We do that. And let's say they need to get over to Crossroads Mall, let's say. We will do another pickup and drop them off at another destination in St. Cloud. And then we make the reverse trip back after that.
Okay.
Does that answer
Beautiful.
your question?
It did. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. So last year, we had just a little under 32,000 rides that we provided for Morrison County with our public bus services, which was about 1,000 more rides than last year. That's good. We want to continue to increase that. One of our biggest challenges with our city bus service here in Little Falls is you're a long city. And so the miles that stretch from one end of the city to the other, it takes our bus a little bit of time to get back and forth. We try not to operate like a taxi company, meaning we try to schedule and bunch rides where we can. If we're going up to the way northern part of Little Falls, we want to maximize that, picking up some of what we call our subscription riders. What that means is it's people that ride our bus on a routine basis. And so we try to map those rides to the best of our ability so that we are getting as many people on the bus as we can, getting them where they need to go with as little ride time as possible. We don't want to get people on our bus and have them riding around for an hour. And so scheduling is one of our biggest priorities when it comes to public bus. We do a lot of the transportation, of course, for elderly in this area. And so we work with the senior living facilities where we do a lot of group riding. We have a contract with EEI in which we pick up a number of their clients, getting them to their different day appointments. And so a lot of the riders that we see in Little Falls are regular riders who just don't do it randomly. It's just they need this in their everyday lives to be able to be self-sustaining. Our volunteer driver program, we continue to operate that program for Morrison County as well. We provide, through a contract with Morrison County, what we call a lot of our social service rides and some medical appointments. We did, I think it was 4,700 rides through our volunteer driver program. Now with that program, that's where we use our volunteers. They're not paid employees of TRICAP. They use their own personal vehicles, and they transport people mainly to medical appointments or counseling appointments. It could be appointments where they need to have child visitation, etc. They don't always stay in Little Falls. We transport people all across the state that need to go to their different appointments. And so that we did see a reduction in the number of rides from last year. I think it was about 600 rides less than last year. One of our biggest challenges, of course, is having enough volunteers. Volunteers are hard to find because everybody needs volunteers. So we continue to look at what we're doing for marketing to increase our volunteers, to make sure that when the social workers in the county call and have their ride request, that we have a volunteer that is able and accessible to meet those needs. But that continues to be a strong program for us as well. We have contracts in Morrison County, as I shared, with Employment Enterprises. We also contract with the Veterans Office here to provide some rides through our volunteer driver service for some of the veterans where the other transportation's not an option. We also do a subcontract with Little Falls Taxi for rides where, again, our volunteer driver isn't going to work, nor will public bus be accommodating. South Country Health Alliance, we have a contract with in partnership with Morrison County for the non-emergency medical transportation rides. And then, of course, we have the Minnesota Department of Transportation, who is our main funder that provides 80% of the funding for our public bus program.
So you as a county board in the budgeting process actually provide some administrative funds to TRICAP to support public transportation? And then we also contract with them for the administrative process with our volunteer driver program. We've been doing that for like 15 years, I think, the volunteer driver program. We used to have a staff specifically in office that would schedule all of our volunteer rides. Now we use TRICAP, and we have a variety of transportation options.
Commissioner Lemire.
Brad or Lori, is there still rules and regulations and or hurdles, let's say, that prohibit or make it harder to find volunteers for driving? I know at one time there was.
There are some challenges within the volunteer driver program across the state, one of them being there's an IRS regulation that requires if a volunteer driver receives over a certain dollar threshold, which I believe is $599 within a given tax year, the company must issue a 1099. That rule has always been there, but for whatever reason in the last couple of years it's popped up and become more prominent, in which it is financially hurting some of the volunteer drivers with their taxes. There is an exception if we have volunteer drivers under the RSVP program. They are exempt from that tax rule. Unfortunately, in Morrison County, there is no longer a RSVP program, and so the volunteers that we have are not able to utilize that exemption. So that's a challenge. The other component that we're seeing with the volunteer driver program is that the private automobile insurance companies are becoming stricter in terms of raising the insurance rates on those volunteer drivers. That's a new trend as well. Those are the two challenges that I see in the volunteer driver program.
If I may, could you explain what RSVP is?
Retired Senior Volunteer
But
Program.
I shouldn't say,
Oh,
but why was it discontinued or not in Morrison County? Or
I don't have a lot of the details on that, but I believe it was a program with Crow Wing County and in Morrison County, and it was administered, and for whatever reason, I think it was Crow Wing County was the administrator of it, chose to relinquish it. And when they did, they relinquished it at a federal level. And so I don't know if it was because of funding. I'm not really sure on that. But I know that really had a significant impact in Crow Wing and Morrison County with volunteers, especially people that were age qualifying to participate.
And then you mentioned 1099, but you also mentioned that this is a volunteer basis, and I know the answer, but I just want to reiterate that it's because they get reimbursed for mileage from somebody.
That's correct. Our volunteer drivers receive the IRS rate for mileage reimbursement. They also receive a $4 a day startup fee for any days that they're volunteering. They also receive meal reimbursement if they have to travel over the meal times. And then we also reimburse for if they have parking fees. But the mileage reimbursement is the big one. On average, I would say that we reimburse our volunteer drivers about $1,400 a month. On average. And so as you can see, our volunteer drivers are putting on a lot of miles. They are transporting passengers long distances and frequently.
And that's probably the most critical service when it comes to our social service programs, trying to keep families together or getting people to chemical dependency treatment who don't have a license. But I do think the IRS issue has been a big one across the state and across the country, and so we continue to talk about ways to mitigate that, but it's a federal requirement, so it makes it a little harder.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Lori, when we talk about a volunteer driver, and I get volunteer, and you just answered the IRS reimbursement, if you will, for miles. You also talked about insurance companies don't like this anymore, so insurance companies raise your premium. I'm asking the question again, is there some thing that's going to come back to me because my premium went up $500 a month or a year, whatever it might be, that somebody's going to reimburse me that, or is that another piece if I'm a volunteer, I'm bringing that upon myself? I don't know the answer to that. And then go back a little bit. Is this stuff income-based? Ridership period, is it income-based? So I kind of loaded you up here. So.
Okay. First what I would say with the insurance issue,
Yep.
we have not, TRICAP volunteers have not come to me and have stated that this has happened to them. This is what I hear a trend across the state and the nation. However, we have not lost volunteer drivers at TRICAP due to this automobile insurance, and so I'm hoping that continues. And so let's talk about public bus first in terms of eligibility.
Yep.
There's no income eligibility for public bus. It is for anybody and everybody. If you want to pay $1.25 for the token, it's for everyone. It's just like if you went to the Twin Cities and you got on the Green Line, same deal. With the volunteer driver program, all of our services are through a contract of some nature. So we talked about, we have a contract with Morrison County. And so the folks that we're transporting in that program come from ride requests from the county. So they are a county client of some nature, whether it's through social services. And then we have contracts with the health insurance companies in which it's a part of their health insurance plan. And so while there is no income eligibility requirements to use our volunteer driver program, 99% of the rides that come through have a paying source to them that provides that.
Very good. Thank you.
And if you are elderly or disabled, you can actually come into our office and receive tokens at a discount. And so we sell a lot of tokens at our office for elderly and disabled and rural tokens as well. So
which is an excellent resource that the county provides here. In fact, I've talked to other county directors that I've given them Brad's name to talk to because they want to do something similar where they're offering a discount in their public bus rides for their residents. So it's a good thing what Morrison County is doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions about our transportation? Okay. If not, I'll just briefly touch upon the Energy Assistance Program. So TRICAP is the grantee for the federal LIHEAP funds, Low Income Heating and Assistance Program. The program technically runs from October to May 31st. But so we're done for this year, but now applications for the new year will already go out in August. And so we don't have much of a lag time. So last year, we served 1,133 households in Morrison County. This is Morrison County numbers only. And so with primary heat, when I talk about primary heat, that's talking about just a grant that went to their energy bill to help them pay their heating costs. So $787,432 was assisted for those 1,100 households in Morrison County. We also offer crisis heating assistance. Crisis heating assistance is for the households who apply for energy assistance and they're in a crisis. So they might have a shut-off notice, they might be out of propane. And so we serve 316 households with crisis assistance that totaled $151,903. And the other component to our energy assistance program is we have emergency furnace repair and replacement services. There were 39 households that were assisted with furnace either replacement or repair, and that totaled $49,133. We work with about 21 different vendors here in Morrison County, the different energy vendors, local heating and plumbing contractors to do the work that's needed in Morrison County. And so those are fairly high numbers for people that need that assistance, and that is not truly the number that need it. We know across the state with energy assistance, there are many households who do not apply that could qualify. And so we spend a considerable amount of time at a local level as well as a state level marketing the program to make sure that households know to apply and receive the assistance that they are entitled to. The last slide that I have is just, I always like to share the economic impact that TRICAP is making in a community. So on top of helping people with meeting their basic needs, through the services that TRICAP provides, we're also helping the economy in your area. So for example, if you look at this past year, the Energy Assistance Program, and I should say that the numbers that I just gave you for energy assistance are from October to May. The numbers that you're seeing now on this economic impact report is just a little bit different time frame. So if you're wondering, well, that number doesn't add to what the last number she shared. $958,268 was awarded to the different energy providers in Morrison County through our Energy Assistance Program. We also assisted some Morrison County residents this past year with tax assistance that generated $37,000 in tax returns to them. We spent $16,748 in Morrison County with vendors for bus repair and maintenance payments, $15,647 for furnace repair and replacements. We paid out $5,233 for landlord rental payments, and then vehicle repair payments, $2,915. What you won't see on here is the gasoline that goes into our buses, and the reason for that is we utilize Quick Trip and holiday stations for all of our gas fill-ups. But their company is actually based out of a different area than Morrison County, and so you're not going to see this on that report because we pay it to a corporate office. But that again just is another way to show not only are we helping people, we're also helping the local economy through the services that are provided. Any questions?
Gentlemen, any questions? Lori, thank you very much.
Yes, thank
Thank you,
you.
Lori.
All right, with that, I'm going to ask Karen Sidrowski to come up front and talk a little bit about financial assistance, which is, again, kind of on the same vein as transportation, those self-sufficiency programs, helping people become self-sufficient. So,
Good morning, everyone.
Morning,
Morning,
Karen.
Karen. And I think Karen's talked to us quite a bit about energy assistance in the past.
Yeah. Okay, diversionary work program in Morrison County. As you can see, 2019, the caseload has gone down a little bit. Diversionary work program is a program that is set up for clients to get on assistance and off assistance as fast as possible. It's a 4-month program. We put clients on, their cash assistance grant goes on what they pay for rent, and there's a maximum that Minnesota Family Investment Program. So the max is the same as the Minnesota Family Investment Program, but DWP is set up. We send them to the Workforce Center. If they get a job, say we put them on in July. If they get a job in August, that income is not counted for the remainder of the months. 4-month program gets you off assistance as fast as possible. They also qualify for food support when they're on diversionary work program. Then we have Minnesota Family Investment Program. This program is set up 60-month lifetime limit unless you have you meet an extension. An extension would be like you're unable to work because of a disability. You can see the caseload's gone down a little bit in 2019. We have, out of the 104 cases, we have 17 cases that are caretakers, grandparents taking care of their grandchildren. So they apply for the children, gives them a little boost, something. Most of these grandparents are retired, so it gives them extra money.
Karen, I'm good at interrupting. Question for you. You said this is a 60-month. What do they do? Kick them to the curb on the 61st month? What happens?
If they're able to work, yes.
But if they're not, then what?
Well, then they'd qualify for an extension.
And that can be, what, another 5 years or?
As long as you're not able to work,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
You have a question for Karen. And I think you maybe just explained this, but I missed it. Total, when you have adults, 82, children, 203, and total 104. And I would think total would mean both those together.
Those are adults and children, so the total caseload is 104. So in that 104 cases, these are the adults and these are the children.
Okay,
Does that make?
Yeah, a caseload could have 5 people.
Right, right, yep,
Just looking at the screen when it says total and,
yeah,
and some
it's,
just have kids, so.
yep, gotcha.
yeah,
Now I understand.
yeah. We have 4 cases where they are exempt from working with the Workforce Center because they took the exemption for a child under 1. We have 19 cases that are FSS. They have a disability, so the Workforce Center has to work with those people differently. Say they have a doctor's statement that they're not able to work for 6 months. So then we have to work with them to try to get back to work. And we have,
Karen, again, when it comes to if they're able to work, who's the one that diagnoses that they're able to work? Is that you guys or who is it?
well, we pretty much ask them if they are not able to work. And if they're not able to work, they have to come up with some type of documentation. If otherwise, we assume they're able to work.
And usually that documentation is from a doctor
Right.
or a psychologist,
Right.
mental health professional. So we can't determine they can't work.
Right.
Over the long haul, that needs a professional statement in support of that.
We have one case that has a family violence waiver. Family violence waivers are if they've been domestic assault victims, but they have to also have some type of documentation for that. Family violence waiver, if they're on that, their months are not counted until they're able to come off the waiver. And then we have 63 cases that are able to work. So those are all referred to the Workforce Center. Moving on, it just gives you the amount of the grants that we paid in 2019. As you can see, it's gone down for diversionary work program.
So
AMFIP?
Karen, what's the reason that things are going down? I'm thinking it's positive, but I don't know the
It
answer
is
to that.
positive.
Okay, but what
It-
would be the reason why everything so far has gone down just a little tiny bit?
Families are finding employment. They're
Because
securing.
there's jobs out there
Right.
if people truly want it. Very good.
Yes. And the Workforce Center is training some people also with our money that we give them.
Okay.
They send them to school, they train them, and that's what's helping. They come off of assistance. It's a good thing.
Yep.
And MFIP, Minnesota Family Investment Program, payments have gone down. We've been notified from the state that they're going to raise the grants $100 per household. I don't know how they're going to do that yet, but. And MFIP assistance standards, it just gives you eligible people the full standard cash grant, food portion, tells you how much a household of 2, a household of 3 would get. This is the maximum benefit. It's not a lot. So when somebody tells you they're making big bucks on assistance, they're really not.
No, they're not.
No.
Not in the
Find
least
this,
little
but
bit.
That's monthly? The number
That's
you see-
monthly, yes.
you're seeing.
But this doesn't include like if they get housing or anything like that. This is just what it says, cash and food portion.
Right.
Or does it?
You're
Okay,
right.
Okay.
Housing assistance is separate.
But again, yeah, like you said, a family of 3.
Right, it's not a lot.
No.
No. Okay, extensions. Here's how they would qualify for an extension if they want after the 60 months. They would have to be employed extension. One parent would have to be working at least an average of 30 hours per week. 2 parents, they'd both have to be working 55 hours per week. Illness, someone would have to only be able to work 20 hours per week. If you're working 20 hours a week, you could qualify for an extension. That's not enough to close your cash assistance. Hard to employ extensions, we do have people that fall under this extension. We actually have people that fall under all of them. Ill or incapacitated, they have to have a doctor's statement. Okay, moving on to childcare. Basic sliding fee. Childcare assistance, we have basic sliding fee, we have MFIP, we have transition year, and we have portability pool. Basic sliding fee is, as you can see, our highest caseload. There again, childcare assistance has gone down. Our funds, we have no waiting list, which is a good thing. Most counties have a waiting list. Morrison County does not. We advertise and we can't seem to get people to apply. So, Minnesota Family Investment Program, we only have 15 cases. We pay for childcare if they're working with the Workforce Center, if they're employed, training. Yearly childcare allocation, as you can see, 2019, it did go down, but we still don't have a waiting list. April childcare, this is the amounts that were issued in 2019. Basic sliding fee, MFIP. Transition year, we don't have a lot because they fall into BSF after they move here. And then we have the income guidelines for child care assistance. We were notified this morning that child care will now have an asset test of $1 million per household.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, an asset test?
Yes.
Can you explain that, or don't you know?
Well, their assets have to be under $1 million in order to qualify for child care assistance.
So
Say
they
that
may
again.
be employed and qualify based on their income,
Yeah.
but now they also then have to take a look at their assets. So if they have,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so eligibility is based on income,
Yep.
except now with the asset test.
Thank
So
you.
if I'm correct, if I'm making $30,000 a year, but I'm worth $800,000, I'm qualified for that?
Correct.
And can you describe what assets are? It's not necessarily cash in the bank.
Land or whatever, correct?
Well, your homestead would be excluded. Your vehicle per licensed driver would be excluded. So it's basically savings, checking, annuities, retirement accounts, boats, snowmobiles, those would be assets. Any toys you have, four-wheelers?
Mr. Chair, I think the general public would wonder, how do you even qualify if you have $800,000 or $1 million in assets?
Well,
You know
yeah,
that.
I don't know why they set it at $1 million. It doesn't,
Well, it doesn't make sense when you're trying to explain this to the general
Yep.
public
Right.
when they're working this and that, but I can get childcare and I've got $1 million worth of assets and I'm making this kind of money.
I don't know what the purpose of that change was, but
well,
there had to be some other issue going on somewhere else.
And
that-
my anticipation is someplace, somebody is getting something underneath the table, however it's done, doesn't make any difference. But the vast majority of your clients are not dealing on any of that stuff.
no,
Right.
no.
Mr.
Just
Chair,
not.
Karen, is that going to make the qualification process more cumbersome and
It will.
and difficult? So I think it's just noting the fact that anytime these regulations change, whatever reason the state has in putting them in place, it certainly changes our workload and can impact the
Yep.
amount of information that we have to gather and the difficulty that people have in
Right.
supporting that. And I think keeping in mind too, as we go through these programs, it's always hard for folks to understand or appreciate sometimes some of the assistance programs that are out there and what people have. But again, the vast majority of costs that are incurred on a statewide basis or on a nationwide basis is healthcare for elderly. So this really is a very not insignificant, but a very small portion of what it is that costs general taxpayers'
Right.
dollars when it comes to supporting those that can't support themselves.
And I believe, Mr. Chair, they didn't have no asset test prior to this,
They
correct?
did not. That's correct.
That's what I saw.
We were hoping that they would lower it to some of the other programs. That's why
Right, that would make
Yeah.
more sense, but.
it would have made more sense,
But I
but
do think, like we said, administratively now, individuals applying are going to have to provide us more information before
Right.
they become eligible, which will be more challenging.
Right.
plus, within the next year, we have to go through all the cases and determine
And
what
again,
their
I think
assets are.
maybe people are missing the point, even though it kind of light went on with me. This is just for childcare.
Just for childcare.
So if I'm by myself or whatever and I want to get.
Yep, this is just
not
for
that-
childcare.
Yeah. Food support, MFIP,
Right.
general assistance is not anything near that.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Brad and Karen, I think what the public would be interested in is where is this assistance money coming that's basically a pass-through through the county. We're administering the programs, but the money is coming from A, the State Department of Human Services, or B, the federal government, or both, correct?
Both. Yep. So none of this is county dollars except for the administrative costs of determining eligibility. All of the grant funds are a pass-through from the state and federal government to licensed providers. So we don't even send them checks. The providers have to do it online.
Right.
And so if I may, Mr. Chair, and Brad, we could go back to Miss Lori that was here previously and recognize those dollars that are being administered through TRICAP would mirror those that are being administered through your office through individuals like Karen, that those two are federal tax dollars passing through this county, correct?
Some of TRICAP's dollars are not federal. They're health plan dollars. There are some. We do have some county contributions in that. But Lori would have to answer that. But like all of the heating assistance is federal dollars.
Yes.
But some of the transportation costs are health plan and county, as well as federal and state through the Department of Transportation.
But when we're looking at, the finance assistance that Karen had briefed us on earlier, with the diversionary work program or MFIB, those are federal dollars, typically coming through state DHS and then through to us,
Yep,
correct?
those are the state gets a federal MFIP grant that then disperses it to each of the counties based on the population or based on what we have in terms of eligible residents. So that's federal dollars.
So the, kind of the underlining score of this isn't, we're not taking county taxpayer dollars and directly dumping that into fiscal assistance back through the county.
That is correct. The only county cost is administrative costs,
Correct.
staff time, which is also reimbursed partly through federal assistance.
Mr. Chair. Brad, this is part of that $93 million that I always talk about that comes from the federal and state government that only costs the taxpayers in Morrison County about 3.7.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Back to the child care income limits, authorized activities, basic sliding fee, employment, education, MFIP, employment, education, transition year does the same, and portability does the same. Any questions?
How about gentlemen, anything?
Karen, thank you very kindly for what you do. This is always so interesting. I appreciate it.
It is.
I have, I believe, one other item under financial or social services, and that is to approve a consulting contract with Mary Klinghagen. Mary Klinghagen retired from the Social Service Information System, which is our state system for social services where we do all of our billing, our contacts, all of our documentation. And she actually started a company after retiring. She used to do the fiscal portion of SSIS and help train our accountants and our staff on how to enter time so we could get the most revenue. She actually reached out to us shortly after to see if we were interested, and I was a little skeptical in talking with Jim Shabluski, our finance director, about, we do a good job. We have accountants who have been in place for a long period of time and do a good job, and they work well with staff. However, in consultation with our partner directors, she has been at about 10 counties, and she has more than doubled the revenue counties have received than her salary, and in one case actually found $350,000 in a county of available revenue. So that was, so it's been an interesting learning experience to see that there are opportunities to increase our revenue using her services with our finance director and our social service staff. So Jim and I have talked with our social service supervisors and feel like this would be a good investment in increasing the revenue available, not only while she's here for 4 days, but also over the long term in training and educating staff to some of the intricacies of the social service information system. She would be here for 3 days, working with staff, working with Jim and his staff, and the contract is not to exceed $4,100. So I'd like to move forward on contracting with Mary on a consultant basis for 3 days with board approval.
Gentlemen, this will be a roll call vote. We'll start with Commissioner.
I'm thinking we should have a
I'll
motion.
need a motion in a second, please.
I'll second it.
Okay. And any more discussion?
Yes. Mr. Chair. Brad, I'm glad that you explained it the way that you did. I read this and I really had questions. And the questions were, we have financial people in Morrison County. We have financial people in social services. Why are we hiring a financial person? And thank you. You answered the question.
Anything else, gentlemen? The point is, if we spend $1, we might get $1.10 back.
I'm hoping to get at least $2 back
Right,
for
but
every
again-
dollar spent.
And this money's coming out of
Out of our budget, yep.
And
Not to exceed $4,100.
Correct.
this is a year-long contract?
This will be through December 31st, but we anticipate she will be here for 3 full days with maybe a hair more of a 4th day, but really 3 full days. But we did it through December 31st in case there's money left over and there's more work to be done with staff. I know some counties have actually added on to the contract in the end because of what they have done, but at this point, we want to commit to those 3 days and see really what she can do for us.
Gentlemen, I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? If not, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. With that, I think Sarah and Emily are here, and we have a Towards Zero Death presentation as well as a grant agreement to sign. So I think we need one more chair.
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning.
So I will turn it over to Emily and Sarah.
So just a brief background on Towards Zero Death. I know we were here last year and we were going to bring this in annually, but just a little brief update that Towards Zero Death was launched in 2003. And prior to that, many of the traffic safety initiatives were really more heavily on the enforcement side, not much on the education side. So that's why the Office of Traffic Safety helped develop this Towards Zero Death. And so it's really an interdisciplinary approach to reducing traffic crashes, injuries, and deaths. So the public health side of it is called the Safe Roads Grant Program. And so we really focus on outreach and education, engaging all of the 5 E's, which are enforcement, education, EMS, engineering, and just everyone in the community. So we utilize crash data to drive our work. Very importantly, in order to obtain this grant, we have to have a collaborative effort with our Sheriff's Department. And so we apply separately. We get different pools of money, but in order to obtain the grant, we both have to apply. So they focus on the enforcement grant program, which is really what it sounds like. They get extra federal funding to get extra enforcement out there looking for speed, looking for distracted driving, looking for impaired driving. So it's a twofold effort. So our Morrison County Safe Roads Coalition was actually established about 4 years ago in 2015. And so it is an annual grant that goes from October to September. We actually just reapplied. And so, again, it's federal funding funneled through the state level through the Office of Traffic Safety. So our coalition meets monthly to discuss these safety issues, create outreach efforts. We follow an enforcement calendar that Emily will go into more detail later. The coalition is made up of representatives from law enforcement, local police department, sheriff's department, our state patrol, our insurance agencies, our youth, our school, our public works, our leadership, our EMS. So a collaborative community effort. And so quarterly there is a team that gets together to review all our fatal crashes, and that is our EMS, our law enforcement, and Emily. And what we do is just try to determine do we see any trends? What do we need to do? How can that help us guide us in what we're doing? So as I said, we really in our community focus on what's called the big 4, the 4 main reasons we're seeing a lot of traffic related crashes and death. And that is lack of seatbelt use, impaired driving, speed, and distracted driving still continues to be the 4 main areas of concern. So the next few slides are just, we pulled together with the help of the State Patrol, some crash data from 2016 to 2018. And so this chart shows you in these 3 years in Morrison County, the amount of property crashes, the amount of injury crashes, and the amount of fatal crashes. As you can tell, property crashes was the highest in our community. We did identify what the top 3 crash location sites are here in our county, and that is Little Falls, Piers, and Royalton. So the next slide, again, 2016 through 2018 just shows how many are injury crashes, which over the 3 years did decrease by 13%. It shows our fatal crashes. As we hear in our title, Towards Zero Death, we want 0 fatalities. So it's concerning if you have any. But what we hear from the State Patrol is that consistency is important. So as long as those numbers aren't increasing, we are doing okay and our efforts are showing. However, again, the goal to have 0. And then total persons with serious injuries decreased by 15% over the last 3 years. And then the total persons killed. And so you might ask, why is the fatal different than the total persons killed? Is because they're at a fatal crash, there could be 2 people that are killed, but they count that as 1. And then but the total people killed in the community then is counted. So that's why those numbers look different. Just for 2019, just for a little tidbit, from January to June of this year, we've had no serious injuries. We did have 1 fatality, but that was related to medical complications from a 94-year-old woman. It didn't have anything to do with traffic safety. So the next slide is our alcohol and drug crashes in these 3 years, and as you can tell, it is still one of the main contributing factors to crashes. So our total crashes, alcohol and drugs was 8% of that, and our serious injuries, 43% the cause, and our fatal crashes is 29% the cause. And I'm going to go through these ones kind of quickly, so I apologize to the flipper. But
That would be my new name. Could be worse, I guess.
so just a little information from 2018 is the crashes by month. What are the highest crash months? And that is January and November. What is the highest crash rate for days of the week? And really Friday has the highest crash rate. The time of day, we see from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., as you can imagine why, is the highest crash rate. And then our age of our drivers, we see that ages 20 to 29 are involved in the most crashes. So now Emily is going to go through what our goals are and things that they work on as a coalition.
So each grant year, our coalition is required to set goals for the year. We set 4 for this past year, so we started in October and it will roll through September. Our first goal was to conduct a survey of our coalition. We did it at the beginning of the year and we'll do it again towards the end of the year. We want to make sure we are analyzing and implementing those recommended improvements from our coalition. The next goal was to increase volunteer hours, so getting our coalition involved in more community events. So we created more opportunities to do so this year. Our third goal was a Buckle Up stencil event. So we have done this the past few years now. We purchased a stencil through AAA money, and our Public Works Department donates the time and the paint to go paint these stencils in parking lots. So we obviously want to get more of those stencils out around the county. And then our last goal was to do some local government presentations to increase knowledge and understanding not only of our traffic safety trends in Morrison County, but what we do as a coalition as well. As Sarah mentioned, we use an enforcement calendar, which is what our law enforcement uses to choose the specific topics of the months that they go enforce at. We use this to guide our outreach activities. So impaired driving is November, December, and August as well. So some of the activities we've done, we're using impairment goggles in our schools and promoting our responsible beverage server training to our alcohol vendors. Distracted driving, which is April, we partnered with youth to present a proclamation to county board. We also hosted lunch table events where we used a distract-a-match game where students would have to do matching as they are texting or reading something on their phone so they can really see how they are distracted. And then we also partnered with the school to do a promise. So it's our own prom, promising to have safe driving behaviors for not only the drivers but passengers as well, and learning how to speak up in tough situations. Seatbelts would be May and September. May, we highlight our Buckle Up stencil event. We reach out to new partners, and in September we will be doing a seatbelt challenge at our schools. In July, the focus is speed, so we utilize our speed signs around the county. Many of the smaller areas bought their own, so we use that data as well. And then if there's any problem areas, people are invited to call in and say that they notice people are driving too fast in these areas, and we can move a speed sign there as well with the help of the sheriff's office. And then we have some other activities that don't really fall into those categories nicely. So Swanville and Uppsala hosted mock crashes, demonstrating the consequences of unsafe driving behaviors. And then we also added messaging around motorcycle safety campaigns this year for motorcyclists as well as the general public. Community partnerships with our school and our youth groups and our local businesses are really the key to reach as many business or citizens as we can. This slide kind of just shows the pictures of what we did this past year. Students for Winter Week, talking about safe driving behaviors, the mock crash in Uppsala, a student playing this Distract-A-Match game, our responsible beverage server flyer that we sent out to all of our alcohol vendors. That is what our stencil looks like for our Buckle Up. And then the center picture is a seatbelt convincer, which was purchased with the help of SourceLove for our region. And this is a simulator of students, or anyone can buckle up, and it simulates a 5 to 10 mile an hour crash. So you can really feel why your seatbelt is important. And we had a lot of good takeaways from that event at the Day of Caring.
That's the one that Brainerd has, right?
Yes, yes.
Do they have another vehicle too? They got
They
the
have-
seatbelt, but don't they have one on the drinking?
Yes, so they have a simulator. They have two different simulators. One is alcohol and one is distracted driving. So that's
Okay.
the screen that they.
I'm just glad you're using it, because that was the point of it, that all the counties could use
Yes.
it, and cities and stuff, so, thank you.
They are really good resources. So moving into 2020, we are currently in the application process. Like Sarah said, we submitted our application in June, and we really want to build on what we've accomplished in 2019. So our goals changed just a bit. We want to review our mission statement with the coalition. This mission statement was created in 2015. And we want to make sure we're still capturing our goals as a coalition and meeting the needs of the community. The second goal would to be reduce average fatalities and serious injuries. So looking at our 2018 data, there were 5 fatal crashes and 13 serious injury crashes. We want to be below that. And then again, increasing those Buckle Up partners. We want to see it spread out into other communities. Right now, everything is Little Falls based, besides Royalton School has a stencil in their parking lot. So we are always looking for partners in the other communities of the county as well. We will follow that same enforcement calendar. Just some additions from what we did last year. We want to build on that, obviously. So with impaired driving, we want to do some messaging around the hunting season and holidays. With distracted driving, we want to duplicate that event that we did in the school and bring it out to the community. So it's obviously not just students that have distractions with their phones. So seeing, demonstrating that to the community as well. And then again, using those simulators, that distracted driving that the Brainerd area has. Seatbelts, we want to do some new messaging with buckling up in pickup trucks. When we're looking at our fatal crashes, we see a significantly high number of seatbelt misuse crashes being in pickup trucks. So we want to focus on that, and then utilizing that seatbelt convincer. With our youth, we really want to create some table tents that highlight different traffic safety topics, and we want to place them around the community in different areas that more people might see. So whether it's in the seating area in Coburn's or something like that, making sure their message is out there and their voice is heard as well. And then the only other addition that we had is workplace education and policy. So we want to work with local businesses and create some policy around seatbelts or cell phones, those kind of things. And that would be new for this next year.
One other important partner that Emily and Sarah neglected to talk a little bit about when it comes to failed crashes is that the highway department is required to actually review fatals in the county, and so this is a process that supports that effort with the highway department as well. So it's a very good program, and as they said, there's differences between what public health and law enforcement do, but it really partners well, and we both have to do it to get the grants that we're currently receiving.
Mr. Chair, I sit on this, on Towards Zero Death, and actually attend when I can, and I very much appreciate it, but I appreciate the education factor more than anything through the whole thing. To talk about a fatality is not a fun time. Got that. And we can set that aside. But to be able to educate our youth, I think, is probably the gatekeeper, the door opener, to try and educate someone that's 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. They're driving. They're already educated. And can they change it? Of course they can. But to be able to start with our youth at whatever the age of starting is, that's not for me to say, and then to have all of these reminders for the older people is just a wonderful piece. And I truly think the key through Towards Zero Death is education. So I thank you both for everything. I really do.
Mr. Chair, would you be able to text me with the contact person with that simulator
Yes.
out of Brainerd? Because Oktoberfest wanted to
Okay.
look
I
at
can
using
definitely
that,
do
and I don't have that number. So
Not while you're driving.
Good point.
thank you.
So if there's no questions about that, the second reason we're here is to authorize the Public Health and Social Service Director to execute any agreements and amendments as necessary to use these grant funds as required by law. So there is a resolution in your packet, and I'm looking for approval on that today as well.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion in a second.
I'll move on that, Mr. Chair.
Motion, I need
Second.
any more discussion to approve the execution of the agreement with Minnesota Department of Public Safety? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies.
All right, I have a couple other public health RVAs. The first is for a new establishment owner license for the Red Rooster Bar and Grill.
All right, gentlemen, I'll ask a motion
I'll make a motion.
in a
on that.
second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the next is a one-day temporary on-sale liquor license for the Randall Cushing Area Lions for an event on August 24th.
I'll move on that, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, need a second?
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And then the last one is a new tobacco license for the Red Rooster Bar and Grill, as well as they have a new owner.
I'll make a motion on
I
that.
have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. My last item is a Public Health and Social Services report, and this is about procurement. As you might recall, I was here at planning 2 weeks ago. I went through a PowerPoint. My plan is not to go through the PowerPoint today, but it is included in your packet. And I thought I would just highlight a couple of things around procurement. Procurement happens every 5 years, although this process was after 4 years. And basically, it is just for Greater Minnesota for this period of time. They're going to do the Metro next year. And this is procuring for PMAP, our Managed Healthcare Program for Children and Families, and Minnesota Care, as well as MSHO and MSC Plus, which are the programs for elderly. We did receive 3 proposals, one from UCare, Medica, and Blue Cross Blue Shield for each product. And they requested that counties score the proposals for PMAP and Minnesota Care, and then create detailed answers for the MSHO MSC Plus questions. So we chose not to go through the MSHO MSC Plus process. We did look at the proposals, but we did not go through the questions and create detailed answers. We did score the PMAP proposal. Along 6 staff participated in that. As a result of that scoring process, we are recommending that the board authorize or do a resolution in support of UCare as our primary health care or health plan for Morrison County children and families on medical assistance and Minnesota Care. UCare is an independent nonprofit health plan that's been around since the late 80s and was developed as a part of the University of Minnesota Medical School. And it's the 4th largest plan in Minnesota. As another backdrop, as you know, South Country Health Alliance is currently our primary health plan for medical assistance in PMAP, but we have chosen to exit South Country as of January 1st, 2020. So the procurement process happened at the right time for that as well. So before you is a resolution suggesting that they pick UCare as our plan. I will say that the state still ultimately picks, and I'm not sure what level of influence this will have. But considering the fact that we scored them and felt like that was the best proposal that fit our needs as an organization and as a community, that's what we're moving forward with.
Gentlemen, we had a discussion on this quite extensive here, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago on this. So I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution for UCare.
I'll move that, Mr.
I have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I believe that's all I have today, Commissioners. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad.
Have a
Thank you,
good day.
Brad.
Brad?
Looks like we got land services.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, don't forget to state your name for the records, ladies.
Okay. For real?
For real.
Okay.
This is something we gotta do.
All right, Amy Kowalczyk, I'm the Land Services Director for Morrison County.
Jean Pop, County Assessor.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
I have got a couple of things for you, and then Jean has some abatements for you. The first item I have, I just want to make sure I'm in the right.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I've got
the
right
Yorick.
one. Yorick? Okay. This is to consider the conditional use permit request for Kenneth and Brenda Yorick. This was to modify the existing feedlot within the Shoreland zoning district by continuing a barn that was partially located within the Shoreland zoning district. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission with 6 conditions. Those conditions are abide by local and state law, notify the road authority when hauling manure during road restrictions, abide by the good neighbor and feedlot odor minimization plans, plant and maintain a 50-foot wide grass buffer around the perimeter of the barn for ongoing stormwater management. And the feedlot owner shall notify the feedlot officer of manure cleanout. And finally, the heifer barn located 215 feet from the stream shall permanently be discontinued for use as an animal holding area.
Gentlemen, I'll ask to approve the permit for Kenneth and Brenda with the 6 conditions.
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you. The next item was also heard at the last Planning Commission meeting, and this is to consider the conditional use permit request for Word of Free Lutheran Church. And this is to construct a 40 by 50 addition onto the north side of the church for classroom and fellowship hall. This was also recommended by the Planning Commission with 1 condition, and that is that the property owner shall make themselves aware of and ensure the structure is built to all applicable state and federal codes that apply to church facilities.
I'll move on that, Mr. Chair.
Motion, I need a second, and that's with the 1 condition. I got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you. Then I've got Jean here for some abatements.
We have 3 abatements. If we don't have any questions on those, I would like to request approval for,
Gentlemen, I'll
I'll
ask
make
for
a
a
motion
motion
to approve.
for all 3.
Yes.
All
I'll
right.
second that.
I got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, that's all I
Easy
have for you.
peasy. All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is it Chelsea up next?
Ooh, this could take a while.
Oh, this
She's-
Good morning, ladies.
Chelsea.
Good
State your
morning.
names again for the record, please.
Denise Vogel, Motor Vehicle Supervisor.
Chelsea Robinson, Morrison County Auditor Treasurer. First on the agenda for Auditor's Report, I have the tax forfeited land sale resolution, and this is to have a tax forfeited land sale on August 9th here in the boardroom, meeting room 1. So I'm looking for an approval.
Gentlemen,
I'll make a
I'll ask for, I
motion,
got a
Mr. Chair.
motion, I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, if I could just take one small moment and thank Chelsea just publicly for acting on this and getting it organized and jumping at the opportunity to get these parcels back on the tax rolls. I appreciate that. It's been something that's needed to get done, and she's been, Johnny on the spot with getting to it, so thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, I have the proposal to consider a full-time licensed assistant or a licensed technician in motor vehicle, looking at hiring starting in this year's budget, grade 17, off of the Morrison County classification and compensation system. Again, 2 weeks ago, we met at a planning session discussing the timeline of what we had in place, and we have this attached to, what we've implemented, the work in progress that we have, what's to come for the future, and requirements that are being rolled down on us deputies and our office support team. So again, this is due to the change of MNLARS and what our future looks like as well.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna ask for a motion in a second. Does not mean that you're for or against, it just that means that we can discuss it.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna move this.
All right, I have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
I got a motion, a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, thank you, Denise. Next on the
Thanks,
agenda,
Denise. Appreciate it.
See ya.
I have Morrison County warrants. I'm looking to pay the bills. So if I
Mr.
can
Chair,
get
I'll make a
approval.
motion to pay all of the bills.
I have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Anything
Next on the agenda,
Mr. Chair, if I could just squeak in one that wasn't in, one that isn't in the board packet, but one that I'd like Chelsea's help on presenting here, so if we could do that before we get to the data contract. We did receive on the 24th of June a petition from folks up in the Lake Chaminade District area for consideration of termination of the district. We've talked about this at length for a while now in terms of the potential that exists for this to come in, and it did. And with that petition receipt, Chelsea and her office were tasked with verifying that petition and verifying the signatures that came in for the petition. The process is defined in statute. We are required to respond accordingly. And so we received that. I just would like to, turn it over to Chelsea to talk a little bit about what process her office used to go through this, what the findings were, and why we're here today with a request for action.
so on June 24th, Monday, we received a petition in terminating Lake Chaminade Lake Improvement District, and in my office, both myself and 3 of my teammates in my office worked verifying the signatures, and I brought the box with me to show you a visual of what that entails, just so you get an idea. So there's 3 binders that, well, this is the smallest one, but 3 full binders, and inside the binders there is listing of Lake Chaminade property owners by parcel number and name, along with a petition statement with owners' names, signatures, and their parcel numbers that they are linked to. So my staff and I, we had to verify those signatures, and how we did that was we had to go off of our parcel assessment list for Lake Chaminade Lake Improvement District. So as for a total, just to give you an idea, parcels that are assessed in Lake Chaminade Lake Improvement District, there's 374 parcels. And we have multiple petitions. We had to go through one by one. We would pull up the parcel in our tax system, see who is the current owner, verify that we have the signatures. So say we have husband and wife, we have both signatures, and then we can carry on. Some of the parcels that we received were not so easy to verify. We had just an example. Some that we had was an LLC. So we have ownership, and it's under an LLC. So we have signatures for this LLC that's a management, but we don't have documentation that they can sign for the LLC. So if we don't have that documentation of who can sign for this parcel for the LLC, it's not a valid count. So we have lots of documentation behind it. We also have where a husband and wife are owners and only the wife signed, and then we need the husband's signature. Well, then to find out the husband may have passed, so then they have a obituary attached, or they may have a death certificate attached. So there's multiple length to verifying signatures. We have parcels that were in trusts. So if a parcel, say it's in a trust, husband and wife, and they have 3 kids, as trustees, all 5 would have to sign. And so going through making sure that we have all of the signatures for that one parcel to count. We also had some who were signed by maybe a power of attorney, and we didn't have the supporting paperwork, or maybe we did have the supporting paperwork to count that. So just an idea of the process that we have to go through one by one, verifying it on the tax system. There's also the petitioners provided deeds that were recorded at the recorder's office, or maybe death certificates, maybe marriage certificates, multiple things with name changes, possibly. We've had some people who, on our records, on our tax records, show 2 different names, male and a female, and the female signed with the male's last name. So we can't assume that they're husband and wife unless we have that documentation. So then we were able to receive a marriage certificate to verify that signature. So it was a lot of time taken to review these in our normal daily work.
Mr. Chair, if I could just, most of this work was submitted from the petitioners. So they did a lot of background work, and we had, been in communication with them prior to this about exactly what we would need to be able to have a signature be counted as valid. And so, again, Chelsea's office did a great job. We certainly consulted legal counsel throughout this process because it isn't something either of us have done before. So we needed to make sure we were doing it correctly. And I appreciated, though, at least the effort put in by those submitting the petition, because it certainly made the work, while extensive, a little bit easier.
We also, so looking at the number of 374 parcels that are assessed in Lake Chaminade Lake Improvement District, in order to come to board today, we would have to have a majority of that amount. So half of that is 187. So required, we would need 188 verified signatures, and today we have 190 verified signatures. So that's why we are here today.
And what that does is prompts action on your part to set a public hearing date. And so I did pass out a resolution and wanted to go through that with you and want to talk a little bit about setting that date. And I can maybe pull that up and we can go through it and read it. I should have that done, I apologize.
I would just like to mention, when we're looking at dates, if we can look at the respect for the Lake Improvement District owners on a weekend, just because a lot of the individuals who live in the district, they're not their homestead, it's their seasonal property. So just to keep that in consideration.
If I may, the 30 days does not apply anymore to set this hearing. So if we set it in August or whatever, it doesn't apply because we already addressed the 30 days.
So under our 30-day impression from our attorney counsel, the 30 days is from when we receive the petition, verify the signatures. From June 24th, we have 30 days to verify petitions. If we have required signatures, we would come to board and then set a hearing date within 30 days from when they submit the petition.
Setting the date is the action, not actually holding the hearing. Correct. So, Mr. Chair, if I could, the petition, or resolution in response to that reads, and I'll just do that because we don't have it out in the board packet. Whereas on June 24th, 2019, the Morrison County received a petition to terminate the Lake Chaminade Lake Improvement District, LSLID, from property owners within the Lake Improvement District. And whereas in response to the petition, the board directed the Morrison County Auditor Treasurer to verify the signatures on documentation and the documentation presented to determine whether a majority of the property owners in the district signed. And whereas upon extensive review, the Morrison County Auditor Treasurer determined the petition includes signatures of a majority of property owners in the district. And whereas according to Minnesota statute 103B.581, the Morrison County Board must set a public hearing to determine whether the existence of the district is no longer in the welfare or the public interest and is not needed to accomplish the purpose of the Lake Improvement District law. Now therefore it be it resolved, the board shall set a public hearing for consideration to terminate the Lake Chaminade Improvement District on, we're going to have discussion regarding the date, time, and place. Further, the board directs its administrator to provide a copy of this resolution, notice of the public hearing, and avenue for property owners to submit written comment to the LSLID Board of Directors, all property owners affected by the LSLID, the supervisors of each township affected by the LSLID, and the Minnesota Commissioners of Pollution Control and Natural Resources. And finally, be it resolved that upon conclusion of the public hearing at the aforementioned date, time, and location, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners shall consider at a subsequent county board meeting whether to terminate the Lake Chaminade Lake Improvement District. And Mr. Chair, I had provided with you the cover letter also that went with the petition. I did that at, it came in a couple of weeks ago, and I gave that to you at the planning session then. So I'll just remind you that there was communication that was sent out to everybody involved regarding that petition and their thoughts on those that submitted it.
If I may, Deb or Chelsea, you can answer this. Hopefully, I think I know the answer. If we vote yes after the public hearing or we vote no, what happens? So again, if we vote to terminate or we vote to keep it the same, what happens in both of them situations?
Well, terminating the lid would terminate the lid. It would dissolve.
But my question, would it terminate it immediately, or does it take 3 months or 6 months?
My understanding of that is that process and what it includes would need to be worked out based upon what existing obligations the lid has. Haven't done that yet, and it's still something we need to look into to get all the details. But, you know, John Kolb, the attorney we've been working with who specializes in lid law, has indicated that we'd need to kind of set some parameters around that dissolution and what that means in terms of, like I said, what obligations they may currently have for the existing year, and what would need to be done to be able to meet those obligations. So that would be yet to come in terms of how that works out, and whether that would be at the end of the year. Do you set a time period in terms of it you know, at the conclusion of whatever it is that's determined needs to happen, that's when it terms. Those are specific details yet that we need to work out. So as we're getting information and questions, and we're trying to find the answers to them, because it is new in terms of
and
the
I'm
process.
sure this will pop up too. We approved as a board here, 6 months, a year ago, a dollar amount for grant money for them to lower the lake, drain the lake or whatever. That would be part of that if it would be terminated, where that money would go, because obviously that was approved and the lid would have the authority to spend that. Now there's no lid.
Well, again, the dissolution parameters are going to have to be looked at in terms of what obligations they currently have for this year. And so whether an action to terminate would take effect at the next calendar year, whether it would take effect immediately, is something that council and we would have to help muddle through if that were the case. Yes, they did receive a grant from the DNR for 2019 operation and some study that they did, and they're following the plan that was set forth for 2019, because we currently are in that.
Commissioner Blaine.
Deb, would we have those parameters provided to us as a board before that public hearing?
We will be working on this prior to that public hearing, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, keep in mind also, I just want to further clarify, but may not further clarify, that we are also engaging in a process to revise the orders of establishment in conjunction with this coming in. And so very separate paths, but paths happening regardless at the same time. And so we have the July 18th public hearing scheduled for the order of establishment revision, which is a requirement to we have to have a public hearing and go through that process in order to modify those orders of establishment. And if you remind yourself that we have those requests that came in and the different things that have come up in order to be able to continue to operate, those needed to be addressed within the orders of establishment. So we have that going on in conjunction with this. So us as staff have been responding to both processes, questions, addressing both of those issues simultaneously, and will continue to do so. And then we also, it requires setting 2 different public hearings. And so this is a separate one than that July 18th.
So, Mr. Chair, we have the July 18th meeting set, and we all know that there's an August 24th Lake Chaminade Lid annual meeting where their budget and all that stuff generally, I believe, is voted upon. Do we want to deal on this before the August 24th meeting?
We certainly can, in terms of hold that public hearing. What I would ask is, I'm kind of working backwards, and we worked with Mr. Kolb to try to help us determine what date and where we could set this. We need to publish this for 2 weeks, and it's recommended, and I would recommend to you that we mail, as indicated in this resolution, do a mailing to each of the property owners impacted. This is a big decision. This is a big deal. And so we need time to be able to get that out and provide proper notice. So the earliest that I would suggest would be that second full week in August as a time frame to consider.
And Chelsea mentioned probably a weekend for the seasonal, so you're probably looking at either the 10th or the 17th of August, I would assume. That's a Saturday.
Or at least keeping in mind folks come up at a weekend, so I would think, a day close to that. Maybe not a Wednesday morning. How's that? I don't know that would be the best.
Friday evening would work.
Yeah, Friday evening would probably work.
That could be an option.
Should we give them some options, and then you could take it to?
No, I need a date set today, please.
So, I mean, but, okay, so we can just say it's gonna be this date, but if they want Friday or Saturday,
No, this is for you to decide as a board.
Okay, so what we have for August, we have 9th and the 10th, which 9th is a Friday, the 10th is a Saturday, or the 16th and the 17th. Please check your calendars right now.
The 9th and the 16th work for me.
Okay, so.
Mike, do you think a Friday night would be a good time to do that? I think so.
I think so.
The ones that are going to come up for the weekend would probably be there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Were we looking at like 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Would we have the public?
6.
Would we have it here, or would we have?
That's a good question. It would be nice to have it here just because of our capability with technology and recording and just being able to house people and it's set up. And so
I think that it should be here.
that is one thing that would be.
So we determined it's gonna be here, now let's just determine the date. Do you want the 9th? So Commissioner Lemire is requesting the 9th or the 16th?
I can make anything work. Those would be the best for me.
Okay, no, that's
Mr.
fine.
Chair, it's Commissioner Lemire's district.
Correct.
And I would bow to whatever he would be looking at.
Take the 9th.
Okay, the 9th and.
He doesn't want to make that decision.
No,
We'll
I
do the
don't want to make
9th.
it. I want it to work for all you
We're
guys.
looking at 6
I'll make
o'clock.
anything
Could we
work.
do 6:30, just because, again, people are driving up, I don't know, just to give them a little bit more time to get here? Would you guys okay with that?
August 9th at 6:30?
6:30, here in the boardroom.
Okay.
I would honestly think that 7 o'clock would probably be a better time when you stop and think of people getting off work at 4 or 5. If they're down by the cities, I think 7 o'clock would probably be a better time to do this. I mean, we're trying to get as many people here as possible.
And keep in mind, the hearing, while it may start at a certain time, public comment will be taken throughout. And so just
would-
reminding folks and reminding also that we have, that we absolutely have the ability to accept written comment, and we'll present that at the meeting just the same as if somebody were here. I mean, it will be presented at the meeting, let's put it that way.
But this will be, this notification will only go in the Morrison County record, plus it'll be sent all to the current landowners.
Yes, we will do a mailing individually to the
Gentlemen,
members.
between you, 6:30 or 7?
I'll make whatever one works. I'm fine with either one.
I'm going to say 7 just because I think it gives more
7
people-
o'clock it is then, since that's what we'll do, 7 o'clock. And we'll have the our supportive attorney here too, I'm hoping.
I will ask on a Friday evening in a summer month, so we may need him, but there is John and Mr. Cole won't be able to attend the July 18th meeting, but there is an associate that will be there. Again, a public hearing is to take comment; it's not to make a decision, and so we'll weigh that based upon availability. So. To complete that resolution that I just read, I heard you say on Friday, August 9th at 7 p.m. in this room, the Morrison County Government Center boardroom.
Yep.
Are we good with that? So I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve that resolution to have the public hearing on August 9th at 7 p.m. right here in the Little Falls.
So moved.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? If not,
If by voting for this resolution doesn't mean that we're against the lid or we're against anything, it's just giving the opportunity for those on the lake to express their opinions on determining what they perceive is best for their riparian lake.
Due to the petition that was submitted and the fact that the majority of property owners signed it, you have to consider setting that public hearing. Correct.
I just don't want a false impression that we're against the lid.
Exactly.
By supporting this resolution.
Yeah.
We're just
Good point,
supporting
Commissioner.
this resolution because of the petition and because we want to hear what they have to say.
Yes.
And we have to
This
do
is just requirements
Yes.
that need to take place.
and then again, moving, this will, again, like Deb said, that we do not have to make a decision one way or the other that evening. That'll be at more discussion, I'm assuming.
I'm to assume, Mr. Chair, that we don't make a decision that evening.
Nope. And in the resolution, it talks about a subsequent board meeting when you would consider the action based upon the feedback you've had.
All right.
Very good.
But importantly to that meeting, because that question I would expect to come up, that is what I mentioned before, that to have dialogue with council and have that information provided to us before that meeting, because we will probably, someone, Mr. Chair, will probably have to state that at that public hearing, that this is what would take place if the petition to terminate is enforced or the petition to terminate is ignored, and that will decide or determine what will happen in the future. One other question, in looking at my calendar, the public hearing for the orders of establishment on my calendar, I have that at 6:30 at City Hall. That 6:30 will be here.
At 6:30, we'll be up at the church
in Lake
Cushing
Chaminade.
in Scandia Valley.
Okay, thank you.
I just want one more thing. I just want to thank you for all the hard work you and your staff did on this. You did a
Yeah.
great
Thank
job.
you.
Thanks.
For when you look back, when I was looking at the timelines from June 24th, and here we are, a stone's throw later, and that box has been disseminated and verified. You guys, and this is something that we don't do every day, or your office doesn't do every day. Kudos to you, Chelsea, and to your staff and your leadership on executing this in a timely manner.
Thank you.
And I also agree with Commissioner Blaine. Again, the work that you did, appreciate it all for the county, and I'm sure for the lid and for the petitioners. Anyway, gentlemen, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, even though I don't need one on this one. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor of having the public hearing as stated, Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Just a second. Mr. Chair, I'd like to back up a little bit. We didn't have any discussion on hiring that auditor's position, but we had a lot of discussion during our planning session. And I just wanted to state for the record that $92,000 came in from the state approximately, right? For the Minlars thing. And $45,000 was going to be raised in license fees and stuff going up $1. Am I?
Correct. So this year, our fee increases will start August 1st, $1. And it's roughly, looking back at 12 years, $40,000 annually growth, and then along with the $92,000 that we received from the state reimbursement for the MNLARS compensation.
Right, and that,
And then we also discussed, weighing that full-time person out would bring us to about 4 years out. So this isn't weighing or levying any more dollars. This is dollars that are coming in. So we shouldn't see a difference in that. And then 4 years down the road, we can reevaluate.
I just thought that was kind of important to talk about that because we talked about a lot at planning session and we just kind of bypassed it here. And the public isn't in on that meeting like this here, so thank you.
And
But
Mr. Chair,
if you will, we did vet that heavily at a planning meeting. And that's why I believe, my opinion anyway, that's why there was no discussion today.
And if I may be a little sarcastic, this is all thanks to MNLARS. So,
Exactly.
and Mr. Chair, staffing increases aren't taken lightly at all. This has been something we've been discussing for a long time, and the impact that it's had on customer service, this current staff and their operation and their willingness to try different things and try to make it work without additional staff has been tremendous. And I don't want to make light of that. But after implementing a number of different things and after looking at operation changes that can help impact a business and doing it better, the horizon really indicates in order to do what it is that our citizens need and ought to expect from us, and the funding coming with it is tremendous. Adding another staff person will help ease that burden on existing staff, and then also for the public to really get the service that they deserve and expect from Morrison County. And so kudos to Denise and to Chelsea for really taking that on again and really looking at all avenues and having added staff be a last resort, but finding a way to make it work. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I would like to add, since our planning session, I know we talked about what we could do better, what we could change, and we looked at our cash register system and our reporting and gave you an idea of other counties that have it implemented and that the cost is around $100,000. So Denise and Amy, our IT person, spoke with Innovators, the Innovator system, which is a cash register system, and it does the reporting, and gave us a quote and just for kicks and giggles, because I wanted to see, I was guessing that it would be under $100,000, but it came back the grand total $209,199. So this is something that we're not looking into, but I just want you to know that we're looking to see what that would really cost for our county, if it would be an option, but at this time it's not.
Was that the extra register, that? Or was that the
So-
software? Remember you talked about an extra register you thought would be much cheaper?
So yes, so what we're looking at is instead of, because right now we have 2 cash registers and we have 4 at the front counter. So we looked at adding 2 more cash registers and a cash register, maybe $760.
Yep.
So, okay, we're talking a couple $1,000.
That's a software or something.
But yes, this is a software for a cash register system that would do what our cash registers do, but they also would have the reports behind it that we do manually, and it would make our work a lot easier, of course, and it should be for that price tag, but that's not
absolutely.
something that
Yeah.
I would,
You still gonna move forward with the cash registers though? So you get,
yes.
yeah, okay, good.
So the bottom line here is, we could spend 200,000, or their department could spend $200,000 and alleviate a lot of workload, but they're choosing to be fiscally responsible and continue to carry the load. And we recognize that, and we realize that it would be better for everyone involved if there was a solution that was more fiscally responsible and still achieve the picking up some of that workload that you guys have to do manually going forward. I wish the public that visits motor vehicle on a, you know, the people that come there every day, had a glimpse of an idea how much work that your people do down there, and for what we're trying to accomplish here too. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Thanks, Chelsea. Anything else?
That's all I have.
All righty.
Thank you.
Deb.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to have Amy Mindorf come up.
can I get one bad box?
Strategic, oh, right here.
Amy, you've been sitting here so patiently this entire time. I'm glad you got to come up here.
Thank you.
All right.
It's always interesting to listen to everybody else's reports.
All right, Mr. Chair, the communication or the request that we have is regarding something that stemmed from our strategic planning process. And it really was quite heavily identified as something that as an organization we need to work on and can do better at. And so that's our website. Back in early 2000s, our current website was developed and began. That was quite some time ago, 15 plus years ago. And at the time, it worked quite well. And it works. But feedback from the public, feedback from our staff, just looking at what current technology exists out in the industry on what is effective and what provides value has led us in a direction that we need to address the website. And when we talk about communication, when we talk about technology in our strategic imperatives, I think this comes into play pretty substantially that we need and have some work to do. With that, though, we all recognize it is quite a project to undertake, and that's probably why it's sitting where it's at right now in its current state. And so Amy and I and staff and Tabitha's helped quite a bit, have done a lot of work in looking at how we can advance a website rewrite, for lack of a better term, or a website update with existing forces, what kind of tools we may need to make sure that the effort put forth and the dollars put forth is money well spent. Because the last thing we want is to put a lot of time and effort into something that isn't going to have an impact, that isn't going to be effective when it comes to serving our customers. And so with that, we met a number of times with a couple of different firms that can help with this and have settled on recommending to you a contract with data marketing. There's a few things that we liked about their proposal in comparison to some others that we looked at. And one of it is the fact that they're quite local. Their company is based in St. Cloud, but the gentleman that is going to be in project managing it, kind of the lead on the team, is from Little Falls. So it's nice to know somebody is here and close to be able to help us with this. They also have a good approach in which they select and they assign a team. And so our efforts or our work isn't going to be tied to one individual that who knows if they may or may not come or go from an organization. And some of the proposals that we had or the folks that we talked to, really it was one person, and that made us all a little nervous about that because we all know that sometimes one person can leave and then we're stuck and starting over. And so we want to make sure our project continues. We also want to make sure we have somebody that can really help us stick to a timeline, that we can hold accountable when it comes to sticking to the strategic mission that we've worked hard to develop, and this company, I believe, can do that. So the recommendation that we have from data is really to work on that initial consultation for determining what we currently have in our website, looking at the analytics of the current website, seeing what people are using or what they're trying to use in our website, working with different business units or different departments to find out what it is that can be provided online that can help serve customers, that can help ease the daily work of staff, but also better serve those that are looking to have a good holistic online experience when it comes to the interaction that they have with Morrison County. It's not to answer every single question, because goodness knows we have a lot going on in this organization, and a lot of different business units and a lot of different missions in our overall little areas of expertise. But it is to kind of try to identify and hit those big ticket items that folks can accomplish online, that we find they want to accomplish online, and that can really help answer the questions that they ask most, if that makes sense. And so with that, the initial proposal that we're looking at is to look at the phase 1 discovery and strategy, those initial hours to be able to look at really taking a dive into the analytics of our current system, and then really helping with that consultation and strategy component that helps us develop kind of a roadmap for a website moving forward. The recommendation that we don't have for you yet, because Amy and I both agreed, and I'll turn it over to you in a second, that we're not ready to make a request or a recommendation on what vendor we choose for actual hosting the website, like the actual product that we use, because we don't know enough about this yet. We want to take a dive into what it is that we currently have and what it is that we need before we know which vendor and which product would best suit the findings of that. And so we're expecting a 3 to 6 month time period to be able to really dive into looking at what it is we currently have and what it is we need. Amy?
I think Deb covered everything, so if you have additional questions, I'm here.
If I may, Amy, just reading this, you got phase 1, the dollar amount of $3,300 for, that's what they're projecting, as they said, for 30 hours. Then you brought up, or Deb brought up, the consulting and strategy. So once that phase 1 is completed, then they're gonna bill us for X amount of months until it's, that we can handle it, kind of, or whatever, so it could go to 3 to 6 months after that?
It could go or longer. That will, so we can have a project manager from data, somebody to go to departments and say, what are your business needs? What do your customers need? What can they get online? And then they have the knowledge on what we could provide online. Kind of, they're just taking the lead. So we know it's going to take 6 to 12 months, 6 to 9 months to actually design and develop a new website. So this first 30 hours or 3 to 6 months, like Deb said, would really be going to departments, talking to them. What should we do to the website to make it better for everybody?
That's the phase 1 part?
Yeah, phase 1 and the consulting and strategy. Phase 1 is really the company going to our current website, looking it over. How does it work? How does it not work? What are people, like she said, trying to use that they're not able to use, and getting those analytics. And then consulting with probably Deb and Tabitha and myself and some other stakeholders to see where we want to go.
So if I may, that's basically an upfront cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's say, so we start in November or whatever the month is. Then we give them that dollar amount, and then from November, they're gonna be charging us X amount of dollars until we finish the phase 1 completely.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, well, basically the consulting and strategy piece, if you just look at that part, it's basically like hiring, a consultant, like a Mike Philippi, to come in and kind of handle the project management of a website. He's doing construction management, this is kind of website management.
And you'll be the one that determines whether every department is gonna be up and running. I'm assuming you're our IT director, you'd be able to say, yep, they can handle we don't need you anymore.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
They'll be doing the initial, until we roll out the website, and then once the website is rolled out and live and in production, then we'll decide, okay, IT can handle it, or we can build a committee. That will come in the next phase, which we're not discussing today. That's kind of coming in the near future in this 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
We don't want to make a determination until we know what do we need to provide to our citizens.
Commissioner Blaine?
So the consulting and strategy part of this that's before us is basically kind of like a fact-finding mission to go and look at, first we look at what we have, and then they're going to take X amount of time, whatever it takes, to go to all the departments and see what their needs are, what they would like to accomplish. Now, the phase that's not on here that we're not talking about will actually be then the development of the actual website itself.
Correct.
The component we're not talking about, it'll overlap. The consulting and the strategy will overlap once a vendor's chosen, but it'll start off helping us. Number one, it's the analytics. So that's the first 30 hours, the first week of really diving into what our current website is. And then we start the consultation and strategy that will start with talking to folks and what kind of services we want to provide. What are those things online that we want to do? And in conjunction with that, we'll be back during that time period to say, now let's jump into working with whatever vendor it is that's chosen. And this will overlap and continue on through that.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, and that's where I kind of get lost on this a little bit, so you might have to help me connect the dots here. But so we have a company called Data Management that will come in, or marketing, whatever, data marketing. I'm sorry, come in here and do the initial discovery, the consultation, the needs assessment, and that. But they may not be the vendor to do the development of the website after that?
Correct.
They could be, but so they know that going in that?
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
they actually have it in this contract, that they're willing to work with whomever we choose to design and host the website. They'll be the project manager through all phases in the future.
They may be the vendor that we recommend ultimately once we learn more about what we need, but they may not. And they are fully aware of that and understand that we need help regardless of leading this project through, because it's a huge undertaking. Like what Amy said with this building remodel, the number of professionals that are helping us manage that is tremendous, because it's a big deal and it's a big component of our work. Imagine, online is kind of like delivering a new building out on the internet and serving customers like that. So this is what this is about, is initially looking at where we're at and then developing that partner throughout this project that says, this is how and what we'd recommend based upon what we're learning about your business, and working with each of those departments to really help us stay focused on accomplishing that goal, which is an effective customer service oriented online presence.
Mr. Chair, I think I made the comment at this meeting, and I kind of just took it for granted that IT could do websites. But really, IT and developing a website is completely different work. Yes. And you brought me aware of that, and I'm glad you did, because I'm just thinking computers, IT, you guys could do that, but that's the difference.
Yep, it is. And really, the website management has been under administration and continues, may continue for that. Tabitha is the one who really takes the lead on making sure content is up to date and making changes with that. And a programmer, a developer, is the one who actually writes that software and develops that website. And so,
yeah, today Morrison County doesn't have a website developer. There are counties that have website developers and coders. We do not have that. As you can see, we haven't needed one for 15 years, and we'll just need them for this initial project. And then once the website, whoever we go with for hosting the website, will provide us tools to update the website on our own and update content.
So what we're envisioning is the recommendation is to enter into this to help get that discovery and strategy component going, and then to start with the consultation and strategy. And within the next 3 to 6 months, we'll come back to you with a recommendation on who that partner would be for actual development and that engine, so to speak, to be able to use moving forward with it so we can complete the project.
Gentlemen, this will be a roll call, but I'll ask for a motion in a second.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to move forward with.
I have a motion.
I'll
need a
second
second.
it.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I think we could beat this to death if we haven't already. This is technology that started in the early 2000s. Technology changed. The public has changed. The world has changed. IT has changed. We need change. I mean, that's just part of how the game is played. You got a different car 20 years ago, and you have a different one today. So, I think that's where the world has gone, where the world has brought us, and that's where we are.
We just need to get up to speed, and we're like
Exactly.
light years behind.
If I may, where's this money coming from?
Capital equipment request is where that should come, will be coming from. And that would be part of it, would be that fund that we put money into for capital projects on an annual basis. So that would be the request, is to be funded through that. Again, this isn't the actual website engine. That will be coming to you, and that will be an additional cost. This is that management to help us along the process to make sure that we continue and that we get it done, and we get it done correctly.
Mr. Chair, and part of the discussion that we had when we had this meeting was to get the website to where people could order forms offline, fill in things offline, so that we don't have to add staff to do things, so that this is more of an efficient thing that it should save us money in the long run.
Hoping to find processes that we can provide applications online, so you can have everything pre-filled before you get here. You know, and that's part of what we'll do with the discovery pieces.
Yep.
What things can we provide online, or what are other counties providing online too that Morrison County might want to provide?
And that's the kind of question that they're going to be asking, and that Amy and I are going to be working with departments in data to try to make sure we're focusing on what is it your customers ask you over and over and over again. What is it that they're looking for online to be able to do, so they don't have to make that trip in here? Not everybody is. We'll still be here. Our doors will be open. We'll still provide that service. But if we can knock some of that regular interaction off and serve people who want to be served online, that's a huge impact to business overall. So that's part of what this process will be, is to have that interaction and an outside set of eyes saying, well, but this is really what I think people are looking for, because according to your current website, this is what they keep searching for and wanting to find, and helping us get there to be able to make sure we're hitting the target that we need to hit.
Mr. Chair, a number of years ago, Land Services, I believe, was at this very table and had a demanding discussion, because the public said, we don't want to live in Minneapolis or St. Paul and come to Morrison County, get a form, maybe find out we got the wrong form after we got back home. If we can do this online and pay for it online. That was a big discussion at that time. To me, that's just another piece to this puzzle that we're talking about. That puzzle goes right into this, is one of those jigsaw pieces that fall into this, into that website.
For clarification, Mr. Chair, Data Marketing has experience in working with other counties in this process?
They've worked with other organizations, and city government being one of those. They haven't worked with the county specifically, and that was something that we took into consideration. I did a bunch of reference checks in their current clientele. They're a marketing firm. They help look at your business, so to speak, and how to reach people effectively. And so that's really that component that we're looking to capitalize on, I guess. That's what we need them most for. Whether they'll actually develop our site is that question that we'll have to look to and bring a recommendation to you in the next, that's that 3 to 6 month time period, where we'll come and talk to you again about whether they'll actually deliver that website or help us manage with a website that maybe is more, or a website vendor that's maybe more familiar with county government. That's why we're not bringing those two components at once, is because we want to make sure that we are working with a partner that knows county government. What expertise we're tapping into with this contract isn't so much that, as it is that marketing, how to effectively reach your customers in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, and thank you,
Okay.
Deb, because that makes more sense to me on my previous question on this, as far as the developer, and why and do they know that they may not be the website developer,
Yes.
but they're actually doing the marketing research part of this project. So
Yes.
now I understand.
And the project management and the marketing component with that. Yep.
And that was
Now I
one of the major factors we kept looking at data was they're not government focused. So if we want to serve our customers, who better to ask than somebody that's not in government every day, like Deb and I. I mean, we know government, so we think of it the same way all the time, where we want somebody that thinks differently. So
Doesn't have the blinders on.
correct. So they can help us navigate what a website would look like for somebody that's never stepped in the government sector before.
Yeah,
So
that makes me feel even better. So thank you.
Any more discussion, gentlemen? This will be a roll call vote. I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried.
All right. Well, more to come. You'll be hearing from us as we work through this process and as we work with this vendor and then come back to you with an actual developer or a product. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Yep.
All
right.
Anything else?
I
then?
don't have any other request for board action items. Just want to let you know the demo continues upstairs on the main level. Walked in there yesterday and it's completely open. It's amazing the quick work they make of demolition. Couple interesting, things occurring with the demo as always, where you find things that you didn't know existed where it existed. One of the components has been electrical. There was a massive amount of wires in the complex in that level. I mean, you can imagine 30 years in a building with different vendors coming in for court systems for all of us, and wires being pulled and then wires being cut and then wires being repulled and then who knows, and all of it staying up, and that it was this tremendous mess, so to speak. And so there were some interesting hiccups on the way with certain things not working for time periods, but our IT staff was phenomenal in responding, working with the contractors that we had. Patience was a virtue that we tapped into many times and asked the folks in this building on a regular basis to work on too. So I appreciate the efforts put forth with that. The end result will be fantastic in terms of the wires that are pulled. We have a good map and we have a good knowledge base on what is going on within the walls and ceilings of our building, and so that's a huge deal. So things will progress with that. But it looks good up there. We're getting there. So it'll continue to move forward with
Mr. Chair, that
construction.
ties into everything we've talked about today. This is how it was done yesterday, and this is how it has to be done today. And I appreciate that, I really do. Because I can't imagine throughout this facility how much cable was in the ceiling that was not used. Because you clipped the cords. You clipped them on one end, you clipped them on the other, and you sent the new one through. There was lots of it, and I know that there was. So, But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, it's been an interesting learning experience, right, Amy? But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything. Is there anything that anybody's waiting for me on or need from me?
Tabitha, how about let's do the calendars? What's the days? Weeks?
We're gonna go July 14th through July 27th.
All right. How about we start with Commissioner Wilson?
Okay, on the 15th, I've got a township meeting with Granite Township. That's with our planning stuff. The 16th, planning session. Community development at 12:15. Lake Shamina on the 18th.
At the church.
Yep. The 22nd, Planning Commission at 7 o'clock at night. The 23rd, a board meeting at 9 o'clock. 26th, Mississippi Headwaters
At
at 9 o'clock in Walker. They're at 9 o'clock in the summertime now.
Okay.
And the 25th, I think, airport commission, or airport meeting. That's
Instead
it.
of the 18th, it's gonna be on the 25th?
Just a minute here, was. Oh, yeah, the 18th, that's the third week. Okay, it's the 18th.
At 12 o'clock.
Yep.
Your Granite Township is what time on the 15th?
8:30
PM, or 8?
In the morning or after?
afternoon, evening.
Okay.
All right, is that it there, Commissioner Wilson?
So,
All right, Commissioner Lemire.
He's got me.
All right. Commissioner Jelinski.
On the 17th at 5 o'clock, I've got a Hands of Hope meeting somewhere in Little Falls, I'm assuming at Pine Country Bank. On the 18th, there's an Armor Owners and Operators Committee meeting in Alexandria at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm scheduled to have an Egg Society meeting that same evening, which I will not be attending due to Lake Shamana. On the 22nd at 9 o'clock in the morning, there's an Armor Regional Leadership meeting, and that's held at the DOT building in St. Cloud. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. On the 25th, the State Emergency Communications Board meets in St. Paul at 12:30 in the afternoon. And Mr. Chair, that completes my schedule.
Commissioner Blaine.
I'm complete outside of July 25th at 6 p.m. Region 5.
All right. Myself, on the 16th, I have a Great River Regional Library meeting at 5. And it just says Commissioner Jelinski said I had TCCs the same evening as Lake Shamana, so I won't be attending, so I'll need to put that down. I'm good to go.
Do you have a Soil and Water on the 25th?
Holy cow, yes, 9 o'clock on the 25th.
Thank you, Tabitha, for
That's what
keeping
we
us in
have right
mind.
before to tell
Yes.
us when our meetings are.
Mr. Chair, if I could remind everybody about tomorrow. We have our management retreat tomorrow. The report time is 8:30 over at the Initiative Foundation. From 8:30 to about 11:30, it'll be you gentlemen and department heads having a presentation from Nicollet County on some classification and compensation options. And then at 11:30, the supervisors in the organization will join us for lunch, and then we're going to have an afternoon of some leadership enrichment activity and some discussions about just overall organizational topics when it comes to HR and admin. So I look forward to the day. It's always fun to get together with the group. They certainly appreciate your participation and presence if you're able to make it, because we all are working together every day to try to figure out how to make this organization move forward. And so it's an important day to get together and just really learn from each other. So.
All of this at the Initiative Fund.
It is, yes. Mm-hmm.
I will be there till 11:30 then.
Okay.
Then I have to leave.
Sounds good.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Today we have at 1 o'clock over the trail thing at
Yes.
the park, right?
Yep.
I won't be able to make that.
At the zoo, at the park near the zoo, right? Yep. Mm-hmm.
You gonna be there?
Yeah.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn. So moved. I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 11:02.
Tyler,